Very nice. I'm live streaming on my hotspot.
I'm live streaming in my office.
You guys have YouTube up too, so you can see what's going on?
No, I don't, because that is so weird to me. When I
It's
can
delayed.
see myself and it's delayed and I keep looking, I'm like, nah, I just.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
What are you doing to have fun?
So we got some people on yet?
Oh, we're on. We're live.
Nice.
Give everybody a nice view of my hairline. How's it
Give
going,
everybody a
gang?
view of my Bud Light.
We again, we're down Brandon here. Chris Jolly is going to join us. I've got one of the guys that work here. He's like a senior sales rep. Does real well. He's going to jump in here later on. He's been doing some full truckload brokerage RFQs recently, so he's going to give us a little insight on what he's seen on that end. I can talk about it, but I'm going to try to stick to the carrier side as best I can because that's my new role.
And for me too, this is an interesting spot because I used to be in the truckload side of things, but now that I'm on the expedited side of things, just solely, I don't really dance in this space, but I do have background in this space. And what caught my attention this past week was there was a post that was thrown out. There's going to be a show tomorrow that Cassandra's doing that is hosting this kind of feisty live concept of what's going on with the RFP world. And when I saw the original post, I'm like, holy cow, this is a great topic because there's a lot of different viewpoints out there on it.
Oh, yeah.
So I was telling Tony before we went live, like we're going to need some of his feedback on this particular show because I threw a message out to Mr. Ron Kane, and he is so awesome. If anybody's connected with him, if you have questions, he will respond to you. So he did give me some of his feedback that he said when it comes to cost of RFPs and what that looks like for the shipper side. Because Tony, tell me, I feel like every time I get an RFP request, a shipper's happy to do that. Is that not accurate?
It's almost it's yours now. I do it a little bit different than what I've seen a lot of people do. So I keep the giant spreadsheet. I'm an Excel nerd. I like pivot tables. And so what I do is I when we initially set up somebody as a carrier and go through all of that, I give you a list of lanes and you quote them. They're your quotes. I don't care what they are. You just quote them. And I put them all in this giant spreadsheet. Then I can sort each lane, smallest to largest, and have an average, a list like a waterfall if I was going to tender it on. But I've just never seen the need for all of that automation when I never get past the second carrier or broker or whoever that may be. It's just, for me, all of that tech is almost a waste. So initially, just to get set up, yes, it may take a while as a new carrier to bid the lanes. But once you're in there, I mean, the only time I ever send anything is when there's a new lane. Otherwise, it's completely your price. You call me, you email me, put it in writing that you have updated your pricing on a certain lane. I update it, confirm via email, and we're good. And there's your price.
Yeah.
And it just stays current all the time.
Yeah. So you're constantly fluctuating as the market changes, whereas a lot of different shippers are setting it. I used to deal with one shipper that wanted the same rates for 3 years.
Well, that
was part of the lock-in process was 3 years long, and that's kind of obscene.
That's crazy. I'd love to have that. But,
right. Yeah.
But I've never seen something that long. But we do have contracted rates with some large carriers that they stay the same. You know, you can email their rating or quoting or whatever you want to call it, system, service, whatever, and they'll get you back on a new lane real quick. You know, it is what it is. But yeah, they give us those rates those are the ones that we negotiate once a year.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And they try and give us a year-long average based on past and what they perceive in the future. Now, this year, everything went to crazy because nobody could have predicted this. But honestly, the ones that we're still using now are the ones that we were using in April. And when we didn't have much, we were still using the same people, you know, that we use now.
Mm-hmm.
and we were paying the same rate that well, it's kind of gone up now, but they had a short memory, I guess.
Yeah. I talked to, it's funny. I had a conference call with our biggest customer and actually the largest automotive customer there is. And so it's always pretty, took a lot of time to put a presentation together. It's always pretty straightforward, but I found myself being able to have those just real conversations with them. I said, guys, the reality of it is this, and what we're doing, and all they want to hear right now is that you're working to build capacity. You're working to work with them, that you're not just bailing. And I told them, I said, guys, I got 3 other accounts I moved in here recently that I'm getting $6 a mile on, and we aren't taking those tenders because we're committed to these lanes. And we're not dumb over here. We know how it works. We know that when the market goes down, we're going to want that dedicated route and that dedicated freight. And all I ask is that you guys remember that, just like when you guys do something to help us out, I'll tell you right now, we don't forget that. And they were just real receptive. And usually they're a little kind of get on you on stuff, but it was a very open conversation. And I just put it out there. I said, are you dealing with capacity issues with other carriers and scorecard issues and things? Not that our scorecard was off because we got a new TMS. It was a little, so they know that, but they were just like, yeah, we are. I mean, it's just the reality of it. Even they talked about their facilities were behind, making mistakes and things. And so it's definitely a real thing.
I've talked to so many different people because from the awesome LinkedIn world that we have, I don't just try to connect with shippers per se. I want to talk to the asset-based company, the other brokerage people, to get that insight on what's going on, what's happening in our marketplace. And I've heard quite a bit of large customers, shippers coming across this issue where carriers, brokers are not able to meet the pricing, and they are starting this mini bid concept. So TJ, have you come across the mini bid concept as of yet?
Yeah. Now this is something that a lot of companies were out ahead of and doing before. You got to be careful with it. I've seen it down to even weekly. The tough part there is, when you're doing a weekly mini bid, even quarterly is tough sometimes because, you got to get in the rhythm of things. And that's one thing I always talk to them about is when I start on a lane, and a lot of times they're okay with it and good with it. But, I want to put probably my top 4 drivers that I know are experienced and willing to do whatever, owner operators that know what they're doing, know how to be an owner operator on those first loads, and have them come in, give me some feedback on the shipper, what it's like over there, wait time, where you can park, ins and outs, docks, how they print the bills, all these things like that you got to get going on. And I mean, you could just be getting going on it and working to, work the kinks out and get smooth, and then all of a sudden lose get undercut. And so it's tough, but it's also a reality. But you got to realize there's so many different types of shippers and commodities that for some that works. That's just part of it, and it works fine. And you got to think some of these big name customers, they don't care. I mean, they're not even. I mean, they say they grade on service, but they're going cheapest rate, cheapest truck. Every carrier, every broker's in the network bidding on their freight, and it's just how it is. So it's just the reality of it. And you got to kind of vet. One big thing I've been on is vetting my shippers quite a bit because it used to be where you take whatever you can get and you're excited, and now it's like you get to a point too where you feel confident enough you can find especially in this market another a shipper, so you can be a little more picky on what works for you in your network and your group.
And even on the expedited side, I agree with that, because when we're talking to a potential client and onboarding a potential client, it's not that we're looking for an open checkbook concept, because that doesn't exist, right? But what we're looking for is, how is that communication while we're doing the implementation process? How is that, I don't know, the feel, the vibe that you get from working with different people? Because as a company owner, or even just say a department manager, you're throwing assets, which are people, if you're a broker, to cover and quote and do all these different things. And so if you get a good vibe and you feel that there's going to be a partnership and a connection, You're willing to adapt a little bit more. You're willing to put more resources towards that, check out that opportunity a little bit more, maybe cut some pricing corners for them, see how it's going to be, and then try to build the relationship off of that. But how do you guys feel with what we had read in regards to this new concept of getting rid of the RFP, and going with this different concept? I mean, Tony, it sounds like you've been almost doing that, and it's been a successful thing for you because your carriers are viewing you as a true partner because you're with them through the ups and downs, right?
Oh, I hope so. I hope they're with us through the ups and downs. But yeah, I mean, once you get involved with somebody, you establish that relationship. You weed out the ones that are less reliable, carriers and brokers. It doesn't matter what the role is, but then you can build into the one. You'll become their partner. You're their partner. They're your partner, and then it's a win-win situation when you can team up like that. And a lot of times there's inbound that can be manipulated. I mean, I know a lot of places where I used to work, everything's bought, delivered, FOBR doc. So, offering somebody inbound isn't even an option most of the time.
That's the thing is,
but I mean,
it's very niche related, and everybody gets kind of involved. I have to pull myself out of it sometimes. I'll say something, and I'm like, I know for sure this is right, and then I'm like, yeah, in this realm it isn't. And people say that you can't ever get rid of an RFQ. There's no way around it. I mean, there's types of customers that have so much freight that there's no way they can build a relationship or do it in a spreadsheet. There's no way around it. And for those that can get away from them, I suggest it. It's not a, it's not a push or so again, it's leadership. It's trickled down. I've got to know a lot of the supply chain and shippers, and you bring a guy that comes in from a different shipper, and he comes in now, he's at another one, and he's Mr. Supply Chain, right? He's bringing in his team, he's bringing in this and that, and it's not even really the right solution, to be honest. And so you'll see that quite a bit. So the more and more you bring solutions to them, Nicole, like you said, working with them on pricing, talking to them about different options and things they can do, you'd be amazed how much they're receptive to it. I mean, I've always told, when I was over the brokerage side, all my account managers, I said, always bring an option. If you get a load option that says pick up Friday, deliver, Monday, if that's something that you can't do, don't just not respond or not bid it. Say, hey, I can't do the Friday, but hey, I've got a truck that could pick up Thursday, deliver Friday. If we can make that work, I can help you with the receiver if you need. Here's the pricing on that. I can pick up Monday and go straight through as well, if that's something that's a possibility. You don't know what they're dealing with. They could be scrambling. You could be their only option. Right. But you can do that at a bigger scale. It isn't just on a single spot.
I had that happen this week.
Yep. It works.
It does.
Yep.
And if it doesn't work, it at least shows they at least know that they're going to come back to you, because they at least know that you're going to bring them an option no matter what.
Right.
And then they do come directly to you. Like I've worked with quite a few. I have an automotive customer that has some, I don't know, I want to say sore spots to pick up loads out of the Laredo area. And they're looking for a specific type of equipment. And it's very few and far between when you can find those during peak times of the day or whatever. Mm-hmm. So we'll be the only ones to say, okay, we can get you 2 straight trucks, or we can get you Sprinter in a straight truck, or we can, pick this up tomorrow and do this. And they appreciate that, because you are taking that extra mile step to make sure that they're covered. It's their choice. That's a job of a carrier or a broker, is to give the customer opportunity to make a decision on what they want to do and what works best for their business, so that way they can keep running or whatever it is that they need to accomplish. And so I agree with you, TJ, in regards to that.
And that's why it's so important to have I used to call it an internal routing guide. And so, I had customers when I was really at my peak, when I was just a producer back as an account manager. I knew where everybody sat. I knew who talked to who at the water cooler. I knew who was in what division. I knew all that stuff. And a lot of it was because even when, I would go to visit them, I took a friend another guy, a colleague with me the one time, and they're like, "Is that TJ? That's TJ." You know, and he was like so surprised that everybody knew who I was, and I had made my way through there, because the more you get to know that, you can get a feel for who they are. You don't know if you're taking freight from somebody, multiple load planners that are offering loads, they could be literally 3 months into their job, just out of college. You know, the more value you can bring to them, and the more you can walk them through things and bring them options that they don't even know exist. They get the order from the customer over, they get it sent through their system, and they put it out for bid. That's what it is. And then they're struggling, and they don't realize that, you know, oh, TJ just said he could pick up Monday morning and go straight through with it. Let me see real quick. And they run it by their sure enough, it works. You know, it's hard to break through that gap when you first start, especially of thinking that everybody that handles the freight is they're all geniuses and they're all super smart, and but you know, it's a whole, you know, combination of things that, you know, I've had a lot of conversations recently with them, just being real, just saying, hey, like Nicole, you said, you know, open checkbook. I know when you guys are going to spend money. You guys know. I'm going to take care of you. Let's work together on the daily stuff. And then if you got to call me at 7 o'clock at night, I'm probably going to give you a high rate, and you know you're going to get a high rate. That's the reality of it.
Right.
I'm going to cover the shipment, right? And I'm going to be fair during the day on the normal stuff. And let's just, you know, just be transparent with it. And, you know, and I'm going to take care of it or handle. That's where the whole handle thing came from was, yeah, I remember customers calling me and like, TJ, need you to handle it. Let's see if you're all talk or not. You know, at 6 or 7.
You're like, look at my t-shirt.
Yeah,
I got this.
I didn't have t-shirts back then, but it grew on you though, because it made you feel good, and it was something that I don't know. There's a feeling you get when they call you and they say, hey, I've got 2 other carriers that are lower than you on this bid, but I'd really rather use you.
Yeah.
To make this happen. I mean, that there's a feeling that you get on that, and then I think that's what really tells you whether or not you're built for it or not.
Well, that's the relationship aspect. You know, when you bring an option to a shipper, sometimes that one shipment that you're focused on with them is, you know, like Ron always said, it's 5%, 10% of your day. You're worried about your fleet. You're worried about whatever else you have to deal with, you know, drivers of your own fleet, and other stuff going on. And when somebody goes in there and just presents an option that's just different than what you were thinking, sometimes you don't have time to think it through and be smart about a shipment. A lot of times that's the case. Sometimes it's just because I didn't think of it yet. You got me, and you got my wheels turning. Now I can take that to customer service can take that to the customer. And as long as everybody knows up front that your Friday shipment isn't going to deliver until Monday afternoon instead of Monday morning, instead of picking up on Friday, being on a truck over weekend for 5 hours, maybe it picks up on Monday morning and delivers 5 hours later, Monday afternoon instead of Monday morning. As long as they're ahead of time planning for that, that's not a big deal. That, I mean, unless you're in the automotive world and it's just in time and you're going to shut a line down, but that's not that common.
That type of bidding's so different though. I love getting expedite loads and picking up expedite carriers the way they bid. Chris Jolly's on.
What's up, guys?
What's up?
And we also got Nick Shipe here.
Hi, Nick.
Hi, I heard expedite.
Yeah, he's into the expedite stuff. So he's one of our senior sales guys at Circle here, and I brought him in because he's been doing a lot of RFQs here recently and has some experience just, you know, with the full truckload and expedite side as well. But just recently too, because, you know, we want to keep it, you know, the main thing is how it's working in this market and what we're seeing. But Chris, what are you doing?
What am I doing? Like right now?
Yeah.
Just finishing up my workday, man. I'm on the West Coast.
Grinding.
Have to be. There's no other way.
What are your thoughts? We were just kind of talking about, you know, whether or not RFPs were going to exist in the future, which I said there's no way they can't. I think there's going to be a lot of shippers that adapt to not using them that can, but there's some that have to. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? You know,
I mean, I think some people are going to deviate away from it in time. I mean, I think what some companies are doing is going to essentially make them, I don't want to call it irrelevant ever, but it's going to significantly decrease the amount of time that carriers and providers put into it. I could see it more turning into hey, we know the rate is going to be this, so either you can take it for this or you can't.
I'm agreeing.
You know, I think that's a little bit farther down the road though, because, you know, with our industry, everything's like with the adaptions of technology right now, there's a lot of trial and error going on right now. There's a lot of seeing what's going to stick. There's a lot of great ideas out there, but you know, at the end of the day, if you're a good person and you're really good at what you do, it doesn't matter. You're still going to have freight to move. So
the opportunities are there when you have that relationship and you have that you could talk to somebody. Nick, I'm happy to touch on it too, because we had gotten an automotive customer and it was kind of a thorn in the side because we had committed to these certain rates. And I had met with them a couple different times. We talked about their expedite side and, you know, pretty strict on scorecards, pretty, you know, and at the time we didn't really have the staff or the, you know, the ability of the bandwidth to really be able to dive in on that. And there was I remember Nick was fairly new. He's up and coming. And they sent an email over, said, "Hey, TJ, I know you're at $1.80 and $1.90 a mile on these 2 lanes that you're running every week. Our customers called. Is there any way you can drop down to $1.10 and $1.15?" I'm thinking, I sat back in my chair like, son of a bitch. I go, this is it. I go, you know what? I got an idea. I said, you know what, Chris? I just dropped his name, but you know, I'm going to work with you here. Chris Jolly.
Yeah.
I'm going to work with you. I love working with you. We've met a couple times. I want to grow with you guys. I'm assuming you want to grow with us. I tell you what we'll do. We'll take these lanes because we want to help your customer as well at that rate if you get us set up on the expedite side. Boom. All right, cool. Adding in this guy, sending this over, blah, blah, blah. And that's all I did. And Nick took it from there and ran it to where it's at now. And it's unbelievable. I never even knew. You never know, right? I don't know what we're going to get out of it. But how strict the scorecards are, the relationship that matters. And Nick, I want to talk on that. I know was there any RFQs involved in that, or is it strictly spot bid at this point?
It's completely spot bid. And I think, you know, kind of touching to what you guys were talking about there. I mean, I think you're going to probably move more to a quarterly RFQ just because of the amount of drop-offs I think we've seen in 2019. 2019 is obviously in and of itself. I think you're starting to see more of the weekly style RFQs, more of the quarterly style RFQs that'll help probably get more dedication to the routes that are going to go on overall. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times the dedicated rates are to be able to hopefully open the door. And if you're effective enough, it's going to be worthwhile. It's just getting to know the relationship, dive yourself into it, take some hits on maybe something that, you know, may not be the ideal price for you, but then being able to grow it in other segments of where that customer may need help at.
I can foresee a company identifying their top like 10% leads and going, okay, I want to keep these semi-annually at this price. You know, I'm shipping 1,200 of these a year. I want to lock in here and maybe get an asset-based provider, or even a brokerage firm that can facilitate that. But I agree with Chris Jolly in regards to the concept. I mean, you're looking at a company like FreightWaves coming in with Sonar, right? And they are selling this platform, which is telling people where the market is, where it should be, what to forecast, what to perceive out of this data. And I have a feeling that RFPs will become more of a quarterly or semi-annual concept, because there needs to be something that's locked in and they know that they can budget, plan, push, go to the next carrier. There you are. But I can't see it being a year. And like I said before you guys got on here, I had a shipper once that would lock in for 3 years. You know, and as a broker or carrier, you're almost excited for the 3-year concept because you know by year 2, you're just calling the plants. You know, you're calling them being like, yo.
I could see with the amount of data that's compiled over the next couple of years, I could see it being on a monthly RFP where like, hey, you're like the onboarding process remains the same, but it's going to not like they're going to be rebidding or anything like that. It's going to be large shippers who have the volume play like Nicole was talking about there. They're saying this is the rate for the next 30 days, take it or leave it. Because like I know when I got into this industry, when we were bidding on lanes and quoting stuff out, we were pulling like rate confirmations and we were like seeing what we had paid historically on those lanes. Like we didn't have a fraction of what's available right now. And I just think that with all of that data, a large shipper who has $1 billion transportation spend are going to be able to invest in this. And it's going to get to the point where they're going to be like, listen, you guys meet all of our metrics, the 98% on time rate, the tender rejection rate is in our criteria. You have access to this freight for the next 30 days. These are the rates, take it or leave it. And then I think that's going to be where it could possibly get to.
It's there. I think there's two things you touch on there. I still remember this. It was really when I kind of opened my eyes. I listened to a podcast called Talking Logistics.
We'll say coffee with a freight coach.
I looked back up, and no, that's my morning ritual.
Yeah.
And I looked it back up the other day to just make sure. It was July of 2019, I remember, and it was Darren Meisner, VP of Operations with Transplace, and he went so in depth on there. And Transplace is known for being great with, their sourcing and their rates and their pricing, and he went so in depth on their RFQ process and how, when they've got a customer, they talk with their customers on the reality of things, right? And they work to build a core carrier base, right? So they know they've got 15 core carriers. So the mini bids they're sending out are mini bids for a reason, because they're the 4 or 5 lanes weekly that people aren't committing to or aren't staying on. The other ones, like, just because it's everything's coming out for bid doesn't mean that 30% of the freight is a yearly contract, 30% of the rate is quarterly, 30% is weekly, and then Tony, where am I at? I got another 10%, I think, is something else. But he talked about how it broke down
public school math
into into that, to where you've got your core carrier base, you've got the mini bids are coming out for the lanes you're struggling with, and then you can work to secure more freight on them. And they may go from that lane, maybe a mini bid every week for 6 months, to somebody finally locks in on it, and now they lock in for a year.
Yeah.
So,
sorry, second thing, sorry, on Chris's jollies, I really wanted to say this because Nick, you may be able to help me out, because I think we were talking about it the other day in one of our offices. There is a system now that is automatically bidding freight, and it's linked to your TMS. There's ways to do it, but there's one way in which it can link to your TMS. And when a spot bid comes up, and it basically runs the data in your system of, in this lane, you've been paying X amount, it's going to bid at this rate. And I don't know the other feature of it. You were talking about it the other day, I think, weren't you?
Yeah, basically, a robot, an online robot that's going in and bidding freight, and you're basically putting the specs in of what you want it to go to. And, I think that will obviously, in one part, turn the ability for your spots, but then obviously I think it'll additionally help out. Sorry, I'm getting blown up here on a call. Help out with, being able to take lane data for, quarterly, monthly, and year at a time rates.
So the only thing that I've seen that are issues with that is if you're doing some food and beverage, right? Food and beverage is known to have these crazy appointment times.
Yeah.
And it could be a 2 a.m., a 4 a.m. delivery. And that is where the rates fluctuate. It's knowing that information and having that dialogue with your customer, like, hey, this could be a challenge. But I can see the bot concept actually working if you're setting parameters and you're going, hey, look at what this system's saying. It could be a sonar, it could be a DAT information, and as well as your internal information. You're getting 3 different sources, and we all know there's more sources coming. I mean, everything that we're doing as brokers or carriers, and we're posting or doing different, they're collecting all that information. Like, we are giving them all of this data for them to make these ultimate decisions on stuff like a bot. So we'll have more options in the future, I think, with this bot concept, and it could really work.
Is it really just turning everything into spot?
I mean, at the end of the day, yes, but like the TMS is tough because, number one, like what Nicole talked about, delivery times. Number two, that account could have had somebody on it for 2 years, had great relationships, that was able to bid high, and they left. And now it's pulling that data.
You're right.
Pulling line haul, is it pulling fuel? Fuel could be way down at this moment compared to what it was back then, and how they're breaking it out. Have they changed their accessorials? I don't know. There's just a lot of things that would have to line up for it to make sense. I think for certain accounts, it could make sense where you've got a bid board of, 200 loads a day constantly that you can't bid. So you might as well get a bid in on them. But I think you got to be careful. I mean, it's kind of tough if you're going just internal TMS wise.
I mean, it's going to be like, I'll see it rolled out, I think, more in in the dry freight, like the high volume dry freight customers are going to have that. And it's, one company that I really like a lot of what they're doing right now is K Ratio. If you don't follow Kyle Lintner, you should.
Yeah,
like his Monday morning videos are like, those 5 minutes are my favorite 5 minutes of my Monday.
Remember Chris, I don't know if you were on that one. He came on one of the first, it might've been one of the first rate debates on Mad Gains. I was on there. I think you were on there, and there were, I think, Ingrid Brown. A couple. I mean, the debate was just going around. You know me. I'm just dropping bombs on people. We for mess up. Yeah. But this dude comes in, this Kyle Lintner, and he just like everybody stopped talking. He went on for like 3 or 4 minutes, and it was like, yep.
Yeah. When I interviewed him on my podcast, it's the same thing, man. It's like everything that he says is true. Like, I see a company like that, and then I just think that the more and more everything that becomes more and more digitized in our industry, somebody is storing that, they're data mining all of that.
Yep.
And like this outlier of a year obviously is not going to be as extreme, but these market shifts are going to happen. And like the predictability factor of it is going to decrease. Or increase, excuse me. It's going to be more and more obvious on when. So like Sonar is only going to strengthen. K Ratio's information is only going to strengthen. The next competitor that tries to come in there is only going to strengthen this information. But brokers are going to be able to use it to their advantage. Carriers are going to be able to use it to their advantage, because at the end of the day, the right people who like this only elevates the real players in this industry. It will completely diminish it exposes all the bullshit that other people have sold themselves on for 30 years. It's not those relationships are always going to be a key component of everything sales, no matter how digital it gets. But the days of calling your customer and saying, "Hey, I misquoted this one. I need an extra $500. I'll get you that next round at golf." That's not going to work anymore. There's too much information out there for them to check you on it.
Yeah, it's knowledge, and it's eye opening when you. So at the beginning of the year, I went and helped start up a brokerage here. Took a break for Circle, came back. But when I was doing that, the guy that it was 2 customers that I had. They were kind of coming together. They wanted to do an internal, so they could move their freight internally and then kind of grow it externally. They did a lot of ocean freight, and one big thing for them was getting like the certain shipments of salt and things like that in at a certain time, because the Illinois River was closing down. And I've talked about this multiple times, but I remember putting a post out about that during COVID. The Illinois River was shutting down in June of this year, which it never does. Like it never does. And that's a huge link that's up the Mississippi. You're breaking off the Illinois to get to Chicago. I mean, that's huge. And so they were looking at bringing it into Louisville or, through the Great Lakes, using Lakers and all these different options. And I'm thinking, why in the world have I not heard a thing about that in the trucking industry? When they're bringing so much freight with containers and bulk and all this stuff that is, raw material all the way to containers. And I don't hear about that. I started looking into it, and I started talking about just knowing those things. That's huge. I predict, just looking at that, and just me having, middle of Indiana brain, figured that, hey, I know that the freight out of St. Louis, where the Illinois breaks off, probably going to be a lot. I know that the freight down in Port Allen and Port Barr and down in Louisiana, it's probably going to be way up. I threw a lot of chips in on that. And sure enough, it absolutely blew. I mean, they're so far behind. There's no point taking it all the way up to the St. If you can't break off to go to Chicago anyways, right? Then they're going to put it on rail, right? Well, then you run out of rail capacity. It's just knowing that one little thing opened my eyes to like, wow, I got to know what's going on maritime, what's going on ocean vessels even.
Well, then that will happen. I mean, we see that with cargo coming in when COVID struck and everything locked up in LA and all these other ports. It was a nightmare, so it just fluctuates across the country. And I think eventually with this data concept, there will be people that their whole job is to scour through what's going on in the news, get an understanding of what's happening at different ports, what's happening, if it's not happening already, and just going, watch out. This is where we need to watch, where capacity is let's try to get capacity here. Let's, raise our rates. Let's, whatever the case is. And they'll have that seasonality. That's not even technically seasonal. It's just watching on what's going on in the world to make those impacts to increase rates.
You can't just tell your customer that the capacity is low somewhere anymore. Like they could literally, everybody's certain trucks, X year or newer, with ELDs between MacroPoint and Four Kites and Project 44, they know where the trucks are. It's all pinging. You're kidding yourself if you don't think those companies are giving that data out.
Of course,
I mean, and getting it out somehow. I mean, I don't know if there's something you sign or whatever. It goes in a little deeper, but they know where the capacity is, and that's the thing. You can't tell them that there's low capacity here, so I need this rate anymore. They know what the capacity is, and they know what rate it should be.
Tony and I have had discussions about this on the side, and like that is what, like, everything that brokers can say that usually was able to slow, like kind of smooth it over for an extra day. All that bullshit's gone. Like with this information, it's all gone. Like the whole, oh, hey, our truck's running or this and that. No. We have tracking on that. We know where that's at. Or, oh, it's funny, there's no trucks here. Why do I see, or why is your competition saying that there's 75 trucks available in this market? Give us a shot. Like that, like you lose a leg to stand on. That's all it is it's like, but back to my first point, the brokers who have been doing it the right way, it's only going to make us better. Like it's only going to bring us more opportunity for business. It's going to drown out the people who have given brokers a bad name through the entirety of all of our careers. The people who have done this right, it's going to make us look like absolute rock stars.
Same thing with drivers.
Correct.
And that's why I said it. And, I got a lot of flack. People just assumed I was a broker, during the whole COVID thing, because I was pretty hard on carriers. I was hard on carriers because I know what it takes to get freight and to move owner operators and drivers, right? I know the effort it takes. I also know that dispatchers got a pretty easy grow there through that. They weren't brought up hardly at all. And you got to think about it. I mean, you've got drivers versus brokers. I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of times it's the dispatcher that's dealing with the broker, right? And the drivers are just getting that. Now they're a little more vocal because they're on the road and they're pissed off and they got time, but that dispatcher's checking out at 5 and leaving and not saying a word. And I was a lot harder on it, but I'm telling you, you'll see a lot. That's what's going to affect capacity too, because the people that were able to come in 2018 and just run the DAT board, make money, talking about how they're making, $8,000 a week now, how much that's being put back for just in case, market goes down again. Where's the financial planning? Tony,
when
the initial,
they don't financial plan. They just think that they're like crazy rich for a minute, and they're like, this is gonna last.
And that's the thing, is it holds them. I'm harder on carriers and drivers because it holds them accountable, because that's the realm I'm in.
Well, I think, I was gonna say, I think you hear the stories from your customers on really. There's so much garbage out there, guys. We all know it.
Exactly.
There's so many companies that I literally go, how are you in business? How is anyone giving you an ounce of freight? And I think a lot of people enter into the space thinking that it's easy, thinking that, I'm going to make a ton of money. I have it all the time. People are like, oh, I'm going to start an expedited company. And I'm like, I don't say anything. Because I'm like, okay.
TJ and I already did.
It's a lot of work. And so that flushing, I think, will be really good for our industry. But also there'll be a lot of acquisitions, a lot of companies that will be selling their companies to grow customer bases, carrier bases, whatever it is, And I think we'll see that continuous trend.
That's the beauty. That's the beauty of it. When everybody was talking about every time I saw somebody say something about contracted rate or regulated market, I mean, I about lost it. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. A regulated market, all that does is allow the people that aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing to get paid the same amount as the people that are doing what they're supposed to be doing. I'm telling you right now, I've managed large teams just in an office setting. And if that person that's not doing what they're supposed to be doing is getting paid the same amount as the person that is, or treated the same, and it's going unnoticed, you're losing the good person, not the bad one.
Right.
You're going to lose a lot of good drivers, a lot of good carriers, a lot of good brokers if you go to regulate that market. I'm telling you right now, because there's nothing that says if I work till midnight and I finish this RFQ and I get it all done and I grind my ass off, my wife's mad at me. She understands the next day. I talked to her about it. And then, like that doesn't pay off. And that gets me heated. I can't stand that. If you can't step up and do what you're supposed to do and put the grind in, don't expect the reward. If you're saying you want a regulated market, you're wrong. It's not going to work. It's proven that it's not going to work. And you know, it's a ridiculous discussion. It's why we're having the ones we're having right now about RFPs and RFQs, because we're trying to better ourselves and better everybody else to understand how to price things moving forward so that we could be a step ahead of people. That's the whole goal.
It's exactly the same as price fixing. You're just doing it up front. It's all the reasons you hate price fixing are the reasons you shouldn't have regulation.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's
The market
terrible.
is so fun to watch in freight. That's why I hobby as an economics nerd. I read blogs, I watch things, and you can see these patterns. It's so easy to see. And especially if you get tuned in. Like I had a guy went out and bought a truck during Corona because, I mean, the market started going the other. He's coming in at the best possible time. And then I had a couple of coaching moments with him in his short term with us. And I was kind of happy that he went out and bought a truck because I knew he'd be gone and I wouldn't have to coach him up anymore. And it was just a problem that went away. And then he comes to me and asks if I'd hire him on. And I sat down and explained to him why there's no chance that would happen. I mean, I meant him no offense. I was trying to give him some personal insight and some guidance, some God's honest truth help that these opportunities that he could have taken when he was working for me as an employee are the things that are going to cause him to fail next year when this market isn't so crazy. When it goes back the other way, he's going to be broke and hurting and looking for a job, and his truck will be for sale.
Dude, I'm going to scoop up a fleet here for pennies on the dollars, man. I think I see this used truck market. They're selling them for like 12 grand right now. I might buy like 5 of them and just sit.
Well, I wish him well. I hope he makes it, and I hope he learned the lessons. You know, I want him to succeed. I'm not sure I'd hire him again.
Yeah, and that's what you want. Is you know, for me, you know, like, you know, I got heated on that one before. It's just how I feel, but it's the fact that you work so hard. Nicole, you started a business, right? You own it, and you know the hours it takes.
Oh,
but at the same time, it's kind of why I'm out doing what I'm doing is because it was tough. I mean, it wore me out, man. I mean, it burned me out. And, you know, freight's addicting. It's something that you do, but it affects everything in your life. And if you could find a way to get people more efficient, right? You want them to still experience things, but not necessarily go through all the tough stuff you did because you were just stumbling through it. But if you could find a way to help people and make them better, it makes everybody better. It makes the whole industry better. And the people that are at the bottom are going to stay at the bottom. They're going to listen to you. They're not going to think it's a good thing that you're on LinkedIn or you're on these live chats because they don't care. They don't want to learn anyways. And so the more you can help, the more people, it's amazing to see. It's just been amazing to see how many people actually do want to learn and become better. It's been awesome. And it's made me better as well.
so do you guys think if we change this world of no RFPs, there will suddenly be this decrease of, hey, I'm going to lose money to get in. I'm going to lose $500 a shipment to get in. And I'm going to do this, and this. I think that will go away. I do. I don't know what you guys think. I want to hear what you think. You know I'm talking about, the entry point when you're getting into a big customer or a good customer, and you're like, all right, we commit to this rate. This rate is terrible. This rate is effing terrible. But we're going to commit to this. We're going to lose our asses, and it's going to be our loss leader. And we're going to go on, and we're going to do great things. Do you think that will go away if we get rid of RFPs or downsize them and how they're?
Well, what's that lane though? Is that lane 1 load a day? Is that 5 loads a day? Is it 10 loads a day? What's that lane that you're going to go and do a loss leader on?
Conversation you have with the shipper when you're bidding it. You say, listen, everyone wants to bid and have those stinger lanes, right? You say, throwing these 3 lanes, we'll lose money on. We'll get in on the spot bids. We'll bid on something else. You know, when really, if you just get in on like 2 lanes that you're going to make money on, everybody else has the same concept as you. And they're going to get in with those stinger lanes. They're going to fall off, and then they're going to come back to you for more pricing. And they're probably going to be, you know, I've had multiple customers come back. Hey, we said no earlier, but we're hurting. Can you help us? Well, hey, how's it going? You know, but I think that's a conversation you have with the shipper up front is, hey, I tell you what, I'll take these 2 lanes, these 3 lanes at this rate. It's low. I know it's the lowest. You got to get them locked down. Can you get me 2 lanes that I know I can make money on, that will get me to where I'm breaking even here, and then let's reevaluate after a certain amount of time. A lot of times they're willing to have those conversations because not a lot of people are asking them. They're filling it out and sending it in a minute before the deadline.
Mm-hmm. I was going to ask Chris, I was going to ask you on the brokerage side, because TJ, you come with the asset-based side, obviously. You have those conversations, Chris, when you're getting this huge bid from Ariba. I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever gotten these. It's like this giant outsourced bid that's like an RFQ or an RFI is 38 pages long. And then you get this bid and you try to follow. You can't get anybody. You cannot get anybody. So as a broker, what do you do when you're in those, or even carrier? What do you do?
I mean, I've never, like, my experience with RFPs and RFQs came directly from a customer, and we spent, you know, like we would, like, our customers took it more serious than I think a lot of people are kind of talking about. Like, this isn't like a non-complex process, you know, like the last RFP that I filled out earlier this year was a 2.5 month multi-round bid process.
Yeah.
You know, I just think that, you know, like, because everybody operates differently. You know, there's customers that ship 2,000 loads a week out there, you know, like their RFP requirements and process is going to be a lot more in depth than a one who ships 100 a week, you know, that may even, you know, they'll do away with their RFP.
How do you break in as a carrier? Good question from Teal in the comments. How do you break in as a new carrier to somebody who doesn't do RFPs?
I mean, I think you just position their truck, drop your trailer in their dock and say, load it up. Where do you want to send me?
I'm here.
I had brought a new customer here, and this was a couple months ago, and it was all drop trailer stuff. They wanted a trailer at 4 locations. The guy, after we got all on board and everything, they kind of dragged their feet on the onboarding process, finally got set up. I stayed with him. I had all 4 trailers there the next day. And this guy was like, wow, TJ. And he actually put in the email, and you very rarely see this. It's like, that was impressive. You got all 4 trailers there by this. And he added like all the load planners in there and said, hey,
oh, that's awesome.
Hey, help TJ. Let's get TJ some freight here. He's got 4 trailers. And I'm like, don't give me too much. I don't have, you know, the capacity's not there. But it right off the bat, it's that initial impression, I think, that gets you in to open up doors right off the bat.
And I can tell you, as a shipper, when we do allow a new carrier in, we're tiptoeing on ice, right? There's a hole in the ice right out there, and we're just tiptoeing around it, and we're waiting for you to fail. And when you fail on that first load, you're gone. I'll never answer your phone call again. But when you hit a home run, when you kill it, and you come back and you ask for more, because I'm not giving you the prime cut, right? You're getting the leftovers. Yeah. You're getting the hard lanes, the one that nobody wants, and that's the way you get in. You're getting the garbage. That's how you get in. You go and you start at the ground floor on every single shipper. And then over time, you build a relationship, you earn that trust, and then pretty soon, all kinds of doors can open up.
Yeah, I mean, that's like legitimately what I'm working with all of my clients right now and helping them build up their sales teams.
What do you say, Chris? You always say, treat it like it's your first load?
Yeah, treat every shipment like it's your first shipment, because Tony's right. Like, the only reason you're getting in with most customers is because their current providers have failed them. That's why you're giving an opportunity to move this load. If you do it perfectly, they're going to give you another opportunity to move that exact same shitty lane that all of their current providers currently failed upon. And then you earn their business every single shipment. It's not a right. And that's where brokers constantly drop the ball, is they get to a point where they're like, you know what? Tony's my boy. I'm going to call him up at 4:00 on a Friday and be like, hey, I'm going to buy you a beer next time I see you, but those 4 shipments aren't coming in. We're good, right? In the past, Tony's going to be like, well, shit, now I got to go call all my customers. But now Tony's got 45 other brokers who are like, hey, you guys want to make a little money on a Friday? Chris Jolly's picking up that phone. I'm going to make sure, and then I'm going to treat it like it's my first shipment every single time. Like, people just take this stuff for granted. They take customer relationships for granted.
That relationship is key, because the shipper's job, the guy on the front lines, the me's of the world, our job is on the line with your performance usually. Like, you're not going to get yelled at. You're going to have me yell at you. Whoop-de-doo. You know, I'm nobody. But I might not be there tomorrow if you fail. That's why
it depends on the level of that, because I think people fail to forget that shippers have customers too, everybody. Mm-hmm. They do. They have this.
Your receiver. The receiver is their customer.
Well, yes. And they have sales teams, and they have people that are needing to get stuff done. And I think that the freight asset-based side and brokerage world tends to forget that. Like, you have requirements that you need to do. every single day on getting that freight delivered. It isn't just like, oh, today I think I'm going to ship 10 shipments. No, these are people that are expecting this freight to arrive for whatever it is that
You know what's cool to
happened
do?
with it.
You get the ship. So a lot of times, what I see a lot with as a carrier is, the people at the moving the freight, pushing it out, the supply chain guys, they're dealing a lot with sales guys that are promising X amount of product to customers, right? That's a big thing. And they may be saying stuff to them, but the sales guys don't care. They got commission. Ask to set up a call with the sales team and the shipping staff, the supply chain group. And I'm telling you, you want to get in good with a shipper, you do that. They've been trying to get listened to. They've been trying to have somebody listen to them. They've been trying to tell them. But if the carrier, if as a carrier, I'm going to be the one thrown under the bus when something goes wrong, I'm going to get out ahead of it. And I'm going to ask it on a conference call with all of them. We're going to figure something out. And we're going to talk to them about the reality of it and what we can do. And maybe they've got some concerns that they have or something they could bring to the table that maybe I can adapt to or get innovative with and work together all the way down the whole entire supply chain. I think it's something that even if it doesn't happen, at least goes to show how serious you are and could even get you in pretty good with the shipper contact you're dealing with.
Oh, for sure. Because I know the shipper concept is dealing with the sales people, the customer service team. So that's one of the ways that I've been able to really create a successful career is take all of those people. I'm like, I would say, Tony, who is it that needs to know? So you're not stuck in that telephone game. Like you can just sit back and relax. I got it. Who are
all the other stuff that we have to do?
Untighten your work.
No, I mean, you get what
Yeah.
I'm saying on the shipment. And you take all of those people and you get an understanding of what they need and what their requirements are. And you just eliminate that telephone game because he's getting all those calls. Like, hey, you put me on this macro point thing. What the hell does this even mean? It's like you take the onus of that. You run with that. You educate that sales team, customer service team, whatever you need to do. So that way people can just move on with their days, and I think that is something that a lot of people forget about. So your point's
I'm
awesome.
right there with you, Nicole. I think that people tend to forget that also, that people leave jobs as well. And if like a transportation manager leaves, you probably will end up leaving with them in a sense as a provider, unless you establish a relationship across the board. You know everybody within their organization. When you do a site visit, one thing I love doing, sitting with accounting, heck, sitting with their IT, sitting with everybody to learn their operations. So they knew who I was. They knew that if that decision maker who onboarded new providers and, did everything inside of that warehouse left, I knew I was still going to receive their business.
Yeah.
Because I've lost customers because of that, because I didn't take my relationship was with one person. It wasn't with the 500 other employees that work there. That's a mistake. You need to have a relationship with everybody within the organization, because I've lost a customer because my point of contact left. The new transportation manager came in and voila, they brought their entire carrier network from their previous employer with them, onboarded all of them and kicked everybody else out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you better believe that if you're not doing that and not communicating in a market right now, shippers and customers, we're talking all on our end, but they're meeting. They're trying to figure out how to get around this. They're trying to figure out how to get ahead of it. They're trying to figure out how to adapt to it, and they're going to adapt. If you're not communicating and you're not, on their mind or what you're doing, they'll figure out their way. I inherited a customer that I came in with, already had some bad service. They were a little off on their times and whatnot, but I was scaling back our capacity on it just due to rates. They weren't willing to work with me on it, and just how the trailers, there's a whole thing with equipment, but I talked with the head guy there, and we were on the same page. And I said, we're going to work to maybe recruit for the lane to maybe grow the capacity back. Let's work together on it. It was funny because about 2 weeks later, I get an email from him on a Sunday afternoon. Okay. And I'm assuming he doesn't know who I am. So he thinks I'm not checking my email. And it says, hey, TJ, just checking with you here. I thought we had talked a while back about some service issues. We're going to go ahead and move forward on this lane with a different carrier. And I thought, that's funny. I said, we did talk about that, if there were necessarily service issues. And I said to myself, okay, well, we haven't actually had anything wrong. Matter of fact, we asked for a new load planner on their end and it was running perfectly fine. They were out pricing that lane as soon as a month ago, before I even had the conversation with the guy. They were already pricing that lane. And that's why you get a lot of pushback right now on rates, is because they don't want to go out and source another carrier for the lane because it's harder than hell right now to do. And they don't, it's a lot of work. Everybody is trying to be efficient and make their job easier. And I tell you, one way to make it easy, and the one way they're going to adapt, is if you're kind of failing, or you're giving loads back, or you're kind of overcharging a little bit. One thing that they probably may not have done in the past, but maybe doing now, is they're out pricing it. They're out looking, they're out sourcing for other carriers. That way they know, especially in a market like now, if you start failing on the lane, their customer's wrong, they've got somebody lined up and they go with it. Absolutely. I think I've seen that. It's something that it blew me away. I responded with, hey, sorry to hear, I'm assuming you guys probably already have another carrier set up to go on it, kind of hinted at it, but in a good way, and no response. So, I think it's something they're doing because they have to do. I mean, it's just, a model they got to run with.
It's fair.
Wow, a moment of silence.
I know.
I know.
I think my
crazy.
brain was just going. I'm sorry.
I was
on,
right.
on all of this concepts, but we are approaching our ending time. So I think
talk, real quick, Rhonda in the comments, she said she's fairly new. She said, can you explain why there continues to be a theme about lack of communication and relationship building, while this is a customer service per se business? I'm trying to wrap my head around it. Still a newbie. Andrew,
I'll answer that.
Came in with some stuff, but
I'll give you a quick answer. The quick answer is you're better than them already. If you don't see that as, if you don't see a problem, if you don't see that there's no communication, that means you're already better than most.
Yep.
Yes. I think in regards to that question alone, people think that they're better than the process. They're above the communication. They think that, back to whole earning your customers freight every single shipment, they think they can get lazy, and that's not the case. And then they're not sourcing the right carriers. I can say this with 1000% certainty. There are brokers and carriers in today's market that is over the moon in carriers' favors, who are still paying carriers the exact same rates that they paid them earlier this year, because the broker continued to pay them the same rates and their customers are overly happy with them. There are providers who do not play the spot market. Yes, it will always be a part of this, but at the end of the day, carriers, customers, and brokers want two things, in my humble public school education opinion here. Customers and carriers want consistent freight. They want capacity when it says it's going to be there. And all of us need to make a little bit of money in the process as well. Carriers want a fair price. Customers want a fair price as well. I don't see where this huge debate kind of comes into it. Not everybody's going to make $1 million doing this job. There's going to be people who are going to fail in this industry, who are going to bring everybody down. And unfortunately, those are the talking points. But there are people out there who don't play these games because they know in 4 months from now, or whenever that is, when this market crashes in not their favor, guess what? Those carriers who never played these games are still getting the same money because they want consistent freight and consistent pay. And that's it.
There's two, I would say this, the reason why there's always an issue with communication and customer service in an industry that demands communication and customer service is because it's not as easy as what people think. If you want to be good in this industry, you got to be able to make and have hard conversations and real conversations. Until you get good at having hard conversations and real conversations, you will continue to dodge communication. You will dodge the issue. You will hope and pray that it works itself out. Never does. You got to do something about it. But if you're not real with those conversations, you have this thing in your head that, like, it's better to not answer than to tell them the truth. Like I will. I mean, I'm telling you, it's rampant. How much that happens.
I know. I'm laughing because
think about the day and age now. Think about the day and age now. People don't say things in people's face anymore. Even, if somebody texts you and they ask you to do something and you don't want to do it, you just don't answer. I mean, that's what the whole world's kind of becoming, and it's this. It can't have hard conversations, can't be real. And if you are, people respect that a lot more. And maybe, wow, this is an excuse I haven't heard before because it's actually real. But if my driver was dicking around and didn't do what he's supposed to do and didn't make it, I'm calling him and telling him that. I'm telling them straight up, listen, I'm gonna deal with this internally. This is what we do, and this is how I'm gonna resolve this. But this is the issue, and this is how I'm gonna fix it. I bring a solution, but I'm telling them exactly what happened and being real.
Yeah, that's what everybody needs.
Everything starts at the top of the organization. So whatever owners, managers, directors let slide is what becomes the culture of the group, right? So if you don't have this expectation to do what Chris said and act as every single load is your first one, that is not going to be who you are. That honesty thing, I've hired a girl before and she literally said to me like, oh, I have to tell the customer the truth. I'm like, yeah. What is so, where did you work before? Yeah. So I think it's also a matter of setting the expectation. So TJ, when you guys are hiring drivers, you're telling them what that freight is like. You are telling them what that job is like. And that's the same thing as a broker. You don't just get a dispatcher phone number and just go like this, please deliver. You are calling the driver before you're even booked. You're calling the driver.
Sometimes.
You telling them what you need. What happened?
I said it gets there sometimes. Please, God, just pick up the phone.
I know, right? You're telling the driver, I need this on Macro Point, Trucker Tools, whatever. I need you to do this. This is what's going to happen. I mean, you're not being an asshole, but you're telling them the expectation. You're telling the dispatcher the expectation. You're getting the expectation from the customer. And that's our job as brokers, is to pull all of that together. But if upper management and someone like yourself, TJ, you don't do those things, I mean, what you're doing, that's where that, oh, I got away with that. Oh, no one said anything. And this is that, no, the expectation from top to bottom, from customer to carrier, from carrier to driver, everything needs to be aligned. And so many issues of communication will be avoided every single time.
And that's where the key is. And you see this in a lot of times in the bigger brokerage companies, and there's going to be a lot of them that don't like me for saying this, but you know, if you're promoted to a manager because you're, you know, in the good old boys club, because you went to college with the guy, because you know him, because it's way more than what you think. I'm telling you.
It's called attrition. You lasted longer than everybody else.
The best way is to get somebody that's been through it, that's done it. They already know the pain. They're adapting to it if they've been in it and been through it, to stay ahead of it, stay ahead of the problems. What can we do to stay ahead of these problems?
Right.
You know, when on the broker side, when I finally worked my way up to that role, the first thing I started doing was changing things that I knew that I struggled with. Right. Got to be on tracking. You know, I broke it apart so that we're able to send two separate rate cons, one without addresses, one with. Right. You don't get the addresses till you accept tracking.
Yep.
You know, how do you guarantee somebody said, you know,
you don't get your pickup number. Sorry, dude.
Yep. And we were able to have our team break that apart. You know, all different type, you know, if it's a team, you know, quit complaining about getting duped for being a team. So I put
talk to both drivers, hand off the phone.
Yep.
I know what we do.
Nope. My
hand
protocol
off the phone.
My protocol
don't call
is
me back. Don't be in the truck stop. Don't be in the bathroom. I don't give a crap.
Sleeping.
Hand off the phone.
The protocol every time was, I want both drivers' numbers. I need to talk to both drivers from
Same
their
time.
specific numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because you're going to hand it off and just talk in a different accent or something and say it's the other guy, and they both have to be on tracking. Right? And if that you don't get the load, it's fine. You don't have to have the load. But
you're like, I want a selfie. Send me selfies.
I wouldn't even send a rate confirmation. That stuff is done in the booking process. And when it's a shipment that if it's a high volume, high visibility shipment, high volume, I'm having those conversations before I even send the rate confirmation. That's in the booking process. The dispatcher knows, listen, I need to speak to both of your drivers within the next 15 minutes. If that's not the case, this load remains posted until this information is provided. It's that simple to me.
It is.
The reason I did that, and that's a good point though, was because what happens is when you book the carrier on it and you say you've got a fairly big carrier sales team, it's marked that it's covered, it sits there for a while, you're waiting for them to accept tracking, you're going through the process, it's this whole thing, and then they fall off.
Yeah.
Right now there's only an hour till it picks up and now you lose money. So my idea, and it works, is they get something in their hands. It kind of locks them on it. They feel as though they're at least tied to the load. It's literally got like the city and state that it's picking up, city and state it's going to, and the rate. And then at the bottom, it says this rate confirmation is contingent on blah, 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 blah. You'll get the full rate confirmation once tracking is accepted. And you're able to do that. That way, it at least ties them on it. I saw a lot less bounces that way.
I guess I just took the opposite approach to that. I made myself and my team be more proactive in that situation. You got a 15-minute window. It's that simple. I don't like if the drivers are sleeping and the one guy who's awake in the driver's seat, tell him to pull over and wake the other dude up. It's that simple. You need this freight that bad. These are the requirements that I have. You got 15 minutes. The load stays posted until I get all of this stuff. And if that's not met, then there's no rate confirmation. I got burnt too many times with that early on, TJ. I know exactly what you're saying in that situation. I just never sent any information over to him. If you want the load, if you're serious about this load, you're going to give me everything I need. And I'm going to give you everything I say. I'm going to give you the rate I promised you. You're going to have that information. Heck, I'll even go as far as putting detention is paid after 2 hours on step. I don't care, because if you're giving me everything I need, you're a carrier I want to play ball with.
That's hot comments. And that's something you follow up with too. So, you have a window, got to have it by then. If you don't, and then you follow up with them and say, hey, you had told me that you were out at lunch, right? And when you get back to the office, you'll get me this or whatever it is. I'm just following up with you. You agreed to this rate. It'll be in by this time. And then that way, when they don't do it,
you just move on to the next. And sometimes there is no next. There are times that you get that only unit and you're like, holy crap, but you still can't bend, because once they sense that you bend, then they're like, ooh. So
I can't, yeah.
Where you're at, and just be transparent with your customer. Like
100%.
I've done that where I go, hey, customer, I am really not, I booked this as a team. I'm not getting a good vibe here. I have this still booked. I'm working on a recovery. If you had someone who was right behind me, I do not want to hold you up. So I'm working on this. You work on this. If you have something, if I'm paying a difference, whatever, I don't care. I want to make sure you're covered.
You care about your freight?
That response is so appreciated.
You care about your freight, make friends in your organization even. I mean, unless you're going cradle to grave, I'm telling you, I knew who the good track and trace people were. And if I wanted to leave at 6, I'd go down and say, hey, here's this, here's a low number. Will you keep an eye on this for me? I'm going to add you in the email chain. I let the customer know, hey, this is the truck I got. He's going to be getting in there. I know I recovered the shipment for you. He has not accepted tracking yet. I've got, Melissa down here. That's going to be on 2 hour updates here through the night. And if anything happens, she's going to get a hold of me. And I'm telling you, you better believe, once a month I was giving her a $20 gift card to, Texas Roadhouse or whatever, because if you want your freight taken care of, it's Indiana, man. That's the jam right there.
Those goddamn biscuits, man, they give me every time.
Deal with the rate cons, deal with the teams, deal with tracking, deal with all of that with the ability to handle that conflict. Teach your people how to handle conflict. Have the hard conversations, because it's conflict is what people avoid. RFQs, it's all about dealing with that conflict. You're going to have the internal, external conflict. You're going to just need to deal with it. And we all have to grow up and learn how. Realizing
that sometimes you shouldn't have to, or you may not have to.
Right.
Teach them how to utilize the resources. Yeah. I used to do that all the time. Hey, if you're an account manager,
I got a hard stop, guys. I got to go.
Yeah. Okay.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I was going to say, we can talk forever. We got to end.
Yeah, we got to.
Next week, Chris, hope you come back.
See you guys.
Loved having your view.
Hey, I'm just going to keep going. So whoever wants to keep watching, stay on. And, I'm good to go for the night.
TJ's going to keep talking, drinking beer.
I'm in the office. I got the cot. I got a cot set up. I mean, I'll track and trace tonight. I'll get out with the crew. They're here.
Yeah, exactly. I'll earn that $20 Texas Roadhouse.
Check call.
All right, next week, guys. Thank you.